Well, hello everybody, this is going to be a different type of review. Today I'm going to be diving into the importance of Father Stu, a movie that is starring Mark Wahlberg in what he is hailed as might being one of his most important films that he's ever done in Hollywood yet. And with an important story like this is one that I very much think many people should dive into and go and see. The most awesome thing about this video is actually going to be I got the chance to interview Mark Wahlberg during a roundtable when he came over to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got two questions in. I got to ask him one fun one, but also I got to really much dive into with him and ask him what is the importance of this. You've been traveling from location to location, state to state to really much push this film because you are passionate about the story. And it's very rare when you see an actor, a director, a writer actually go to so many states, even the smallest states such as Arizona. I've seen him go to other states like, I don't know, Minnesota, and actually be able to discuss this film with the critics, the journalists in there. And I think that is something that we don't see enough of nowadays. And I'm very excited to dive into this movie because, honestly, my thoughts on this film is it's okay. I think he is absolutely incredible in the film, but I do have issues with some of the direction, and I'll speak about that towards the end of this video. But I think this is really a movie review to dive into the importance of this, and really much the importance of telling a story that you're passionate about and why it is important for us as creatives to really much tell a story like this, and one that I can't believe I'd never heard about this story beforehand. Of course, diving into this, Father Stu follows the life of Stuart Long, a boxer turned priest who inspired countless people during his journey from self-destruction to redemption. Now, this is directed by first-time director and writer Rosalind Ross, who has directed some shorts that I've never seen, and also stars the likes of Mark Wahlberg, Mel Gibson, Jackie Weaver, and of course, Teresa Ruiz. Now, for me, getting my biggest pro out of the way is Mark Wahlberg's performance. Physically and mentally, this is probably one of his biggest and strongest performances yet, and he really much discussed something big with him was how much the physical transformation he had. He was probably in the best shape of his life during the start of this film because, of course, Stuart Long was a boxer, but then he went and turned into a priest. And during his priesthood days, he actually started developing a disease that started to lose all motor function within his legs, his body, to the point where he was gaining tons of weight. And the amount of weight that Mark Wahlberg put into this film was astounding. I mean, we don't see it enough nowadays. I know we see Christian Bale's done it, many other actors, but this is big for him, and especially at his age, he has discussed that, like, putting on that much weight was tough. Losing it was a little bit easier, but I was very fascinated to hear that. But his performance in here is great, and again, it's one of his better performances in his entire career. But also one of the things that very much impressed me with this film was, again, the importance of the story. Seeing a guy who was very much self-destructive, not really knowing his purpose in the world. And I think a lot of us kind of understand that, is that we don't know our purpose in this world. We're longing to find what is the reason that we are put on this earth today. And one big thing to this is, there are so many Christian or Catholic type of religious movies that come out that I roll my eyes at because it's just banging you on the head that this is a religious movie and you should be all for it. And we have tons of these come out each year, and I'm never a big fan of them. This movie finally actually breaks the mold wall. Again, I have issues with the film, and I think it's just a good, fine movie, but still, the importance of it is told in such a way, because I'm religious. I grew up in a Catholic and Christian family, and for me, this is the first film that actually doesn't bang you over the head with it. And it really is. It holds to that R rating, showing the self-destruction of Stuart Long and how he goes to that redemption. And many people will gravitate to this story of Stuart Long and maybe finally start to learn what their purpose is in this world. Is it to tell creative stories like this? Is it to do something else? Is it to become a priest? Is it to become more religious? Is it to be a better father? Is it to do this? Is it to tell stories? Whatever you might be, we all have that talent and something that finally sucks into us that really much gravitates us to there, and that was one of the biggest elements that really much surprised me with Father Stu. Again, like I had mentioned, I got to ask him, one of the questions was the importance. What is the importance of this? And this was his answer.
Well, I think just getting it right, staying true to who Stu was, all the difficulty. That's why, the R rating was so important. Stu had a very rough and difficult upbringing, very, difficult time even, trying to make it in the business in Hollywood. And he just wanted to be honest and raw. I think that's the thing that people appreciate the most about the film. they know that they could see themselves in some sort of way, because we're all struggling. We've all dealt with things that we never would have expected we had to, especially now with COVID and everything. So to have a movie that's just really touching people in a very personal, intimate way is it's a very powerful thing.
The answer being like that, it really much stuck out to me how important, again, this film was to him, and really much how he wanted people to discover and find out Father Stu's story. Because Stuart Long's story is inspiring, and the fact that he mentioned that when he had first heard about this film, and when he had first heard about the story of Stuart Long, he was at dinner with two different priests, and one priest had never heard about it, but this other priest was trying to pitch them kind of a movie of this, and he goes, oh, what are you talking about? Start it over again. Oh, okay, start it over again. Now I'm actually interested in hearing about this. Then he heard about it, and it really much has stuck with him since. He was even a part of The Fighter, actually having David O. Russell be one of the scriptwriters and giving him a script that he wasn't really satisfied with. And then finally, when Rosalind Ross came around, he finally found a script that he was passionate about. Then it was getting the movie off the ground. And, you know, Mark Wahlberg is one of the most notable names in Hollywood, and he still was having issues getting this film funded, to the point where he went, screw it! I'm going to fund the film myself. I think that's something important to hear nowadays within Hollywood, and how, again, a lot of actors still have issues getting certain ideas or certain stories off the ground, and sometimes they just have to push in everything they have to really much make this film come to life. Father Stu was that. It was a passion project from him. And for me, hearing an important story like that, and again, seeing one guy go from being this boxer and then trying to go out in Hollywood and become an actor, but then really much self-discovering himself and being like, hey, I want to be a priest. For me, that was one of the things that actually made me look at my journey right now and what I'm doing. When I was in high school, I was a track and cross-country star, running varsity every single year, thinking I could do this for the rest of my life. Then after high school, as some certain things happened, it pushed me away from it, and I will never be in the same physical shape that I was. Well, I probably could, but I never have the time to. But then I started discovering how much my passion for movies really is, and how I can discover and dive into movies and do reviews like this and create content and maybe give a platform for certain movies that need that platform a little bit more. Say Father Stu or other independent films that come out throughout the entire year. But also my biggest thing is that I can just talk film appreciation, because I like talking more of the positives than really much shitting on a movie. And I think a lot of people understand that, but then I get shit on for it. But then I get to the point where I'm like, I don't really care. I just like talking movies. And I love how Father Stu really much established that. And I think there are going to be people who see this movie that maybe come to the light of what they should be doing. Because Stuart Long was looking for his purpose, and it dropped in front of him when he least expected it. Because the only reason he went to church was for a girl. And let's be honest, we've done some crazy things for significant others to get their attention or whatever it may be, but it's still, you never know when something's going to fall in your lap, and when you're like, I'm passionate about this, I want to do it for the rest of my life. Seems like Mark Wahlberg really much feels that throughout this, because one of the fun questions I did get to ask is, because he's played so many different characters in his entire filmography, I got to ask him, hey, like, well, which character do you think could probably learn the most from being around Stuart Long? And this was his answer.
Gosh. I don't know. I always think of like John from Ted or Terry Hoyts from the other guys. The guys who like need the most guidance. And guys who mean well, right? Cool guys. You love to hang out with them, but you definitely don't want to be taking like life advice or career advice from those guys.
Hearing that answer and actually really much diving into a little bit more, kind of looking at some of his other stuff that he's discussed with, is that he wants to do more movies like this and Joe Bell, and tell stories that maybe not many people have heard about, but are important stories for the atmosphere of that. And again, the importance of Father Stu, I think, is more out there than we would expect. Again, the trailer didn't really impress me. I overall think the movie was just okay and fine. And it is a decent movie that a lot of people will really gravitate to, especially with the storytelling capabilities in it. But it is a movie that, while Mark Wahlberg gives a great performance, I do want to start mentioning a little bit of my cons, because I have talked about the film appreciation and the importance of it. I think for me, Rosalind Ross, as a first-time director for a feature film, there's some things to learn in here. But again, telling this important story, there was a lot to cover in this, and even finding out there was a lot that they actually even had to cut out, but they got the main basic points to it. And while you can definitely feel the pacing throughout this, and maybe there were some things I would have cut out overall, and maybe even gave a little bit more livelihood to the pacing of it all, I think as like a directorial debut, this is a solid one at that. But it is one that, again, centers back around to the importance of this story, and why I think many people should check it out just to kind of learn about the story itself, Maybe you're feeling self-doubt about yourself. Maybe you're feeling like you don't know your purpose in this world. Or maybe you are someone who wants to become a little bit more religious. You know, this is, again, a very different video. I had the great perspective to, again, interview Mark Wahlberg and include those 2 questions inside this review, but also just being able to dive into more of a video essay, analytical kind of review of it, where I can discuss just one certain topic of this film and why I think it is important to focus in on that than actually the overall quality of the movie. Because the overall quality, like I've mentioned, is decent. I think there could have been some bigger umps to it all, and I think Rosalind Ross has a lot to learn from as a director. Again, I could have, if I made this movie, it would have been terrible, but I think Ross's direction is decent in here. I think she just needs to find that style to really much gravitate to here, but overall, there's so many different things to appreciate about Father Stu. I am overall going to give the film a C+, but I really do recommend. This is like one of the few movies that I would recommend if you want something that's a little bit different, that's not going to be the greatest thing to change your world, but has an important story that after you leave, you're still going to be thinking about it and wanting to look up a little bit more about who Stuart Long was, especially if you are someone who comes from a Christian or Catholic family. I think you're going to very much enjoy this one and be quite surprised by it. So with all that said, again, I give this film a C+, and overall, thank you so much again to Sony, Allied, and of course, anyone who was able to bring Mark Wahlberg to here, and thank you to him for really much taking the time out of his day to come to Arizona. I could tell how exhausted he was, but he wants to get the story out, and I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on the movie. So make sure again to hit that like and subscribe button down below, hit that comment section, comment down below your guys' thoughts as well, and head on over to Sandwich on Films on how to see films early. But of course, until next time, stay classy.